So what we're going to talk today about is using story cubes in the classroom. Kind of briefly introduce them. I know a lot of people have already said to me that they have them, don't know what to do. So introduce the basic concept and then talk about some other ways that we can incorporate them into the classroom as well. So first thing I'd like you to do is just very quick discussion, minute together, is do you use storytelling in your classroom? If so, when, how, what do you use to introduce it? And if not, why not? So a minute among yourselves. Okay, so just bring it back, okay? So let's do a quick show of hands of how many people use storytelling regularly in the class, yeah? Okay, any kind of quick how or why you like to use it?
It's coming from the student.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest reason, yeah. Quick show of hands, why not? Or is there anybody who's a bit reluctant to use storytelling? Great, okay, nobody was like me. So for me, I found myself a little bit reluctant to use storytelling in the classroom because in my experience, students found it quite difficult to generate ideas. So you'd say to them, okay, I want you to write a story, I want you to tell a story, and they'd go great for a couple of minutes, and then very quickly it would fizzle out, and they never really got that depth, like Fergal was saying, they never got that depth and value out of the activity. Also as well, I think depending on nationalities, some nationalities obviously have a bigger imagination than others, like Liam was talking about it, having this imagination, and some are very, lackluster in their creativity. And what I found from kind of monthly student feedback was that they wanted more writing-based activities and they wanted more opportunities to write. And it was a problem with myself that I found that I wasn't giving them this chance because I was worried about how they were going to be able to do it. So I started to look for ways in which I could maybe make storytelling more interesting and not just let's practice present perfect by writing about some experiences, but giving them more natural ways to use storytelling in the class. And so I happened across story cubes. So I think the most famous, the one most people will know, are the Rory Story Cubes brand. There are lots of story cubes available now, cheaper versions of this, you don't have to go. For anybody who's not familiar with it, it is usually about 9 cubes. It's similar to a dice. Each side has a picture. So there are different themes available. This orange set is the original, so there's a wide variety of pictures in this, but there are ones like actions, holidays, I know they have a Batman series, fairy tales, so lots and lots of different topics. Really simple to use. The basic concept is you roll the dice, you roll the cubes, and you use the images to tell a story, either verbally, orally, or write a story from this. And there is also an app available for the people who don't maybe want to have the actual cubes, but prefer to have something more technology focused, or also maybe in a school where you might have a few tablets and decide to put the apps on the tablets, and that way teachers can share. And so yeah, use them, great, got some great focus, students like them. I think as Fergal was saying, it's great for them to have something to hold and to feel like, this is something that other people are using, it's something that, is not like the teacher has just created for me, it's not just a language thing. And my students reacted really positively to it and they really enjoyed it. But then I found, okay, well after a while it gets a little bit repetitive because you're just bringing in the story cubes and saying, okay, let's roll the dice again and tell a story. And they were kind of getting, a little bit bored, and I was bored with it as well. So I started to think about how else could I use story cubes in the class? What other ways could I use the same resource but incorporate it to make it more interesting again? And that's what we're going to look at next. So, you can give each student a single cube and have them tell a group story. So, roll their individual cube and they have to continue on the group story. Great challenge with this is obviously that they have to find ways to relate maybe what Marianne is saying to what Lou is saying. So I've got to try and figure out where my cube fits in the overall story. For lower levels, it might be a good idea to give structured prompts. So just give them 5 cubes and say, okay, choose one of these cubes and you're going to answer the question, somebody. So one of the images is going to be your main character. Choose the next cube, what was their aim? What did this character want to do? But they had a problem, so they had to do this, and finally them. And lower level students can write a very simple story just using this. Somebody, for example, if I go back, somebody saw, so it's a picture of an eye, somebody saw an accident. They wanted to help, but it was raining. And very, very simple stories, you know? 5-line stories using these cubes as the basis. The other thing you could do is add the story cube into group writing or into role plays to add a challenge or an inspiration or talking point. And while Liam was talking about his radio shows, and sometimes maybe they lack a bit of imagination, or maybe they're going great and they have lots of ideas and you want to add a little challenge, maybe towards the end of the activity, throw in a story cube and say, now you've got to include this focus into your radio. Or if you have a few students that aren't coming up with as many ideas, okay, have a look at these cubes, maybe you can incorporate some of your ideas. You could use the cubes to do a board race, so have them work in teams, roll 1 cube as the teacher, and let the teams race to write a sentence onto the board. So again, there is still a production value here, but it's not this, let's sit down and write a whole story again. And you could make that competitive then. Just give them a total number of points to start with. If you've got a grammatical mistake, you're going to lose a point. If you've got spelling mistakes, if you want to really shift the focus then from just this natural production of fluency to more accuracy-based activities. Word association. So you can get higher levels students to tell the story without actually using the exact word. So for example here, they're not allowed to say the word be. So they might say, I was stung, I heard a buzz, they have to find another way to explain it. As a way to practice relative clauses, define the picture, tell me 10 things about this picture. So there are ways to bring in some grammatical aspects. You could do comparing and contrasting as well. I know some of you had that idea with the cards. Same with the story cubes. Compare 2 of the images. What's the same, what's different? Lots of ways to brainstorm vocabulary. Like I said already, you could add them towards the end of a speaking task, or you could set them as the focus of the role play. So you're going to have a role play and you have to include these 3 images from the cubes. There is an action set, so it's focused a lot on verbs and movements, so you could use this with miming if you wanted. You could also do this with the regular sets as well, so mime the word, but obviously with the action set I think it would work much better with lower levels. Lots of ideas, yeah. 1 student can roll the cubes, tell a story, okay? Without changing the images, mix the cubes up, and the partner has to retell the story that they have. So they have the visual cues to help them remember. We do a lot of kind of retell. Interview one partner, tell the next one. Here they have the visual aids to help them remember. It's not in the same order. You can obviously challenge them then to paraphrase it. Don't use the same words that your partner used if you wanted to add that extra. And then maybe with higher level classes you might ask them to roll the cubes and create the shortest grammatically correct sentence that uses a word from each cube. Like I said, there are many, many types of cubes and many sets. I know Tiger have some, Deals have some, there's more expensive versions, cheap versions. I've used quite a few of these ideas and students have always reacted very well and very positively to them. Like I said, doing the normal, okay, roll, tell the story, that lost the novelty factor very quickly. but they've always responded well to incorporating them elsewhere into the class. So I generally always have my packet of story cubes with me. And if I see students are struggling with ideas, or maybe they're going through an activity too quickly, I'll throw them in at the end to say, okay, you got to go back, you got to include this. So if they're, for example, organising something or planning an event, and I've scheduled 8 minutes for it, and 5 minutes or 4 or 5 minutes are gone, and I can see they're at the end already. Okay, now you've got to include these things into it. You've got to go back, you've got to replan, you've got to negotiate and see how you can do this. So just to finish up then. For teachers, I think story cubes are quick, they're easy to use, low prep, zero preparation there. For me, as I said at the beginning, I often neglected to focus on writing skills. And I think sometimes we can do it, very quickly as, oh, I've got a few minutes, okay, write out your answers, or like I said, with certain grammatical structures, we always tend to write comparatives. Okay, write a comparison between your city and Dublin, or write a travel brochure. But this is a way to bring in some writing in another, a more fun way. There's a lot more motivation from the students. I think the demand on them to have ideas obviously gives them that more freedom to explore the language, because they're not just sitting there going, oh, what can we say next? What can we say next? They have the ideas, so now they get to explore this and focus more on the production. And it's good as well if you have a variation of levels or abilities within your class, because like I said, with lower levels you can just say what you see, or if you've got some more advanced students in the class, maybe you can say, okay, you're not allowed to say that word. So it allows for that mixed abilities in the classroom. Student participation, or students obviously have improved participation. They're more focused on, as I said, the content. They don't have to worry if they have that lack of ideas. They've got the ideas, so they can focus on how are we going to say this. And of course it allows them to use language they have. Again, because you're not saying, I want you to include this present perfect, da, da, da. They look at the picture, they produce what they can. So with the be, if the only word they know for that is be, or for example, if there's one with a picture of a hand, they can say hand. If they know that they have the phrasal verb hand over, hold on, they can start to use that as well, because their interpretation is allowed. So thanks for listening, and yeah, any questions?